Hey folks, my name is Mike Demaro. I want to welcome you to another great presentation I'm going to do for you. If you enjoyed part one, I decided to do a part two of the United States interstate system. This time we're going to focus on the three-digit interstates. And there are a lot of them, but not a lot of slides compared to the last one. So let's get started. Disclaimer, I have a few here. These are three-digit interstates. Now, you're going to see terms like parent and child, and the parent is the one or two-digit interstate that spawns the three-digit interstate, which is the child. Now, the last two numbers are the parent number, where it came from. If there are two different parent interstates with the same number, they're going to be on the same slide. And former and canceled three-digit interstates are in red text in the slideshow. Future three-digit interstates are in italicized, and unsigned are underlined. Makes sense. All right, we will go in order from southern or westernmost state to northern or easternmost state. And once again, credit goes to Wikipedia for this information, though I knew some of this information going in. So what is a three-digit interstate? Well, here are the types. You have one that goes, and we're going to use I-10 for example here. And this is the example I found on Wikipedia. So where you have 10 that bypass the city, 210 goes through the city. You have 610 that loops around the city, whereas 10 goes into the city and 310 is a spur from that. And then you have 10 that bypasses again with 810 going into the city, and 510 is a spur that goes into the city. The three types of three-digit interstates: spur route, bypass route, beltway route, or sometimes known as a loop route, but it's most commonly known as a beltway. In this case, we're going to call it beltway. All right, a spur route. A spur route number usually has an odd number for a first digit, like 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. It is usually one of the following. It may serve another section of a city or metropolitan area that is not served by the main freeway, terminating at a regular city street, avenue, or at a substandard freeway. It may represent the first portion of a contemplated extended freeway, one that downgrades to below interstate standards with plans to upgrade it later. It may connect two unrelated interstate highways, like Interstate 390 in New York, where it connects I-90 and I-86 in New York, or I-395 in Connecticut and Massachusetts, where it connects I-95 in Connecticut with I-90 in Massachusetts. Sometimes a three-digit interstate highway branches off another three-digit interstate highway. These spurs do not connect directly with their parent highways, but are associated with them via the three-digit highway they do intersect with. An example is I-290 in Worcester, where it spawns off 190 that goes up to Fitchburg, and 190 does not connect with I-90 in Massachusetts. Another example is I-695 is a beltway around Baltimore, and you have a spur route that spawns from it, I-795, and it never connects with I-95 either. All right, a bypass route. A bypass route may traverse around a city or may run through it with the main line bypassing. In a typical 3-digit interstate highway, bypasses usually have both its two termini junctions with another interstate highway. Most of the time it's with the parent highway, whereas, well, you see, let me give you an example. I-275 in Tampa, St. Petersburg, Florida. Its southern end is I-75 in Bradenton. Its northern end is I-75 just north of Wesley Chapel, and it connects with that. Or another case might be 475 in Georgia, where the southern end is just south of Macon and northern end is just north of Macon. Those are two of the examples I have. I know there's other examples out there. Well, there's another example I could use. I-295, where it goes from where it bypasses the city of Providence, Rhode Island, whereas its southern end at I-95 in Warwick, Rhode Island, and its northern end is I-95 in Attleboro, Massachusetts. All right, Beltway route. A beltway, also known as a loop route, surrounds a metropolitan city completely, and it is often connected with multiple junctions to other routes. Unlike other auxiliary interstate highways, or child interstate highways, or 3-digit interstate highways, beltways do not have a terminus. However, they have a place where the highway mileage resets to 0. Beltways are also preceded by an even number in the first digit. And bypass numbers are also have the first digit as an even number. So a beltway is I-495 around Washington, D.C. That's a beltway. I-695 around Baltimore. That's a beltway. I-295 around Jacksonville. That's a beltway. Those are some of the examples. All right, childless 2-digit interstates. These are, well, 1 or 2-digit interstates actually. But these are the interstates that do not have any 3-digit interstates that spawn from them. And the list here I have is I-2, I-4, I-8, I-11, I-12, I-14, I-17, I-19, I-27, I-37, I-39, I-41, I-43, I-49, I-57, I-66, I-68, I-73, I-76 in Colorado, I-86, I-88, I-97, I-99, IH2, and IH3. Now, I did not put I-22 on this list because it's being planned out, so I did not put I-22 on here. And I also did not, and also I-66 and I-97 did have planned 3-digit interstates, but they were canceled. And we're going to go through that too, so on here. All right, so the first one we have, we're doing this lowest number first, going highest number, is Interstate 5. Now in California, you have I-105, I-205, I-305, I-405, I-505, I-605, I-805, I-905. And I'm going to admit something right now. I forgot to put I-805 on here. Now, Oregon, we have I-105, I-305, I-405, I-505. Oregon, Washington, I-205. Washington, I-405, I-605, I-705. Now, I-905 is a future interstate. I-305, I-505 in Oregon, and I-605 in Washington are former or canceled interstates. All right, next one we have is I-10. In California, we have I-110, I-210, I-710. Arizona, I-410, I-510, I-710. Texas, I-110, I-410, I-610. Louisiana, I-110, I-210, I-310, I-410, I-510, I-610, I-910. Mississippi, I-110, I-310, Alabama, I-210, Florida, I-110. Arizona, the three in Arizona were either former or canceled. I-410 in Louisiana was canceled twice, and in Alabama, I-210 is a former interstate, which is now I-165. I-910 is unsigned for Louisiana, and in Mississippi, they're planning a I-310 in Gulfport. I-15. And from here on out, I'm just going to say the numbers. I'm not going to say I in front of it because you guys know what it means. You know what I means. So California 215, Nevada 215 515, Utah 215 415, Montana 115 315. Utah 415 was planned out and then it was canceled, and 315 in Montana is unsigned. I-16, it only has one, and that's 516 in Savannah. I-20, in Texas you have 820, Louisiana you have 220 and 420, Mississippi you have 220, Georgia you have 420, Georgia and South Carolina you have 520. Okay, I do have some facts here. Louisiana 420 was canceled. Georgia 420 was canceled. Now here's an interesting fact. 520, it intersects its parent twice, and it ends at its parent. It's supposed to have an even number, but originally it was 520 that was Georgia, and then I think they built South Carolina right after, and they just kept the 520, which is weird. But each state has an intersection of 20 and 520. I-22. Now these two are futures, and in Alabama, that's 222 and 422. And the note on here I have is if I-422 is built, it is not planned to meet I-22, which is weird. Well, there are some weird ones. And then I-24, you only have one, and it's unsigned through Chattanooga, and that's I-124. Interstate 25, for a cross-country interstate, you only officially have one interstate, and that's I-225. I-425 was being planned in Colorado, in the Denver area, but it got canceled or renumbered. Now, I-26 in South Carolina, you have 126, 326, and 526. Now, 326 is a former three-digit interstate, which is now part of I-77. And another interesting fact, 526, even though it might be a little bypass route around Charleston, South Carolina, it has both ends with US 17. It only meets I-26 once. All right, I-29. In Missouri, we have 229. Iowa, Nebraska is 129, and South Dakota, it's 229. And the note on here is I-29 does not go through Nebraska, whereas 129 does. And that's going to be one of a few interstates that the child goes into a state where the parent does not. I-30, and all these are actually in Arkansas. 130, 430, 530, 630, and 730. 130 and 730 were former and canceled interstate. What is now Interstate 130, I believe, is now part of I-49 through Arkansas. And I don't remember what 730 was. I-35, Texas, I-635, Oklahoma, I-235, Kansas, I-135, I-235, I-335. Kansas and Missouri, you have two of them, I-435, I-635. Iowa, you have I-235. Minnesota, you have I-335. And Minnesota and Wisconsin, you have I-535. Now, 335 in Minnesota was a former / canceled interstate. And note here is I-35 does not go into Wisconsin like I-535 does. Interstate 40. It's surprising that there are no three-digit interstates that deal with 40 west of Oklahoma. And that's where we're going to start, Oklahoma. I-240, I-440. Arkansas, 440, 540. Tennessee, 140, 240, 440, 640, 840. North Carolina, 140, 240, 440, 540, 840. Now, the only canceled one on here is I-440. Interstate 44, Oklahoma again. You have 244 and 444. Now, 444 is one of two three-digit interstates that actually have the same number as the three digits, which is 4. The only thing is, 444 is not a signed interstate, but it is in the system somehow. Now we have Interstate 45, and you have I-345, which is an unsigned interstate. Here's the fact though. I-345 starts where I-45 has its northern end, and it goes for a little bit of distance. You know, why couldn't they just extend I-45 and take out I-345? I don't know. It's just some things that it amazes me sometimes about this interstate highway system. All right, Interstate 55 is our next one. Mississippi, 755, Tennessee, 255, Tennessee and Missouri, 155, Arkansas, here's that other three-digit interstate that has the same number, which is 555, Missouri and Illinois, I-255, Illinois, I-155, and I-355. Now, Mississippi, I-755 is being planned in Jackson, and Tennessee, I-255 was a former interstate in Tennessee near the Memphis area. I-59, these are all in Alabama. It's I-359, I-459, I-759. Now 359 and 459, they also start at the end of, they also have a intersection with I-20 because I-20 and I-59 are concurrent through Tuscaloosa and in the southern part of Birmingham, in the southern end of 459. I-20 intersects with it, and then I-20 intersects 459 by itself too. And then 759 goes through Gaston. I-64, Indiana, 164. Kentucky, 264. Virginia, 264, 464, 564, 664. Indiana, 164 is now I-69. And Kentucky, 264 goes through the Louisville area. Virginia, I-264, I-664, and I-64 all meet in Chesapeake, Virginia, where they all end. And then you also have 464 and 564, which is in the Norfolk area too. I-65, Alabama, you have 165 in Mobile, 565 in Huntsville, Tennessee, I-265, Kentucky, 165, 265, 365. Indiana, 165, 265, 465, 865. Tennessee, I-265 is a former or canceled interstate. Kentucky, I-365 is being planned out. Indiana, I-165 is a former or canceled interstate. And here's an interesting fact about I-265 in Kentucky, Indiana. They were supposed to be one road, but unfortunately it was not built that way, so they're two separate roads serving the Louisville, Kentucky area. One on the Kentucky side of the Ohio River, and the other on the Indiana side of the Ohio River. I-66, and we have I-266, which, and there's a special note about this one, proposed loop route of I-66 between the district and Arlington County, if built, would have been the only three-digit route of I-66, canceled in the face of community opposition during Washington's freeway revolts. Now you're going to have some of these coming up where interstate highways got canceled because of these freeway revolts and some uncompleted sections of interstates as well. I-69, that's an uncompleted route, but it's planned to be completed. We don't know when, but for right now, we can talk about its children interstate routes. It's 3 digits. Texas, you have 169 and 369. Mississippi and Tennessee, you have 269. Tennessee, you have 169. Kentucky, you have 169, 369, 569, and Indiana, you have 469. Now, Tennessee, 169 is being planned. Kentucky, 369 and 569 are being planned. Interstate 70. Colorado, you have 270 and 470. Kansas, you have 470. Kansas and Missouri, you have 670. Missouri, you have 170, 370, and 470. Missouri and Illinois, you have 270. Ohio, 270 and 670. Ohio and West Virginia, you have 470. Maryland, you have 170, 270, and 370. Colorado, I-470 was supposed to go around Denver. It was a former interstate and it got canceled and was turned into a state route and a toll road, I believe. And in Missouri, I-370 is being planned. And in Maryland, I-170, it was supposed to go through Baltimore and got canceled. Now, interesting fact about I-470 through Ohio and West Virginia. The thing is, it's the only 3-digit interstate in the state of West Virginia, and that's up in Wheeling, West Virginia, on the very tip of West Virginia. I-71, you have two. One of them that goes through 2 states, and the other one just goes through 1 state. Kentucky and Ohio, you have I-471, and in Ohio, you just have I-271. And I-271, it goes around the east side of Cleveland and ends at I-90. I-72, you only have one, which is 172 in Illinois. 74, you currently only have one, and one's being planned. The one that exists is I-474, and the one that is being planned is I-274. I-75. In Florida, you have 175, 275, 375. Georgia, 175, 475, 575, 675. Tennessee, 275, 475. Tennessee, Kentucky, you have 175. Now, this is our first of two that go through 3 states. Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana all have I-275 as a beltway around Cincinnati. And then we go on to Ohio, where you have I-475, 675. Michigan, you have 275, 375, 475, and 675. Now, I-75 does not go through Indiana in the southern part of the state, or is in the Cincinnati metro area. I-76, we're going to talk, this is not the one in Colorado. This is the one that's in the eastern part of the United States. In Pennsylvania, you have 176, 276, 376, 476, 576, and 876. Pennsylvania and New Jersey, you have 676, and New Jersey, you have 276. Explanations on that. 576 is a future route in the Pittsburgh area. 876 is a canceled route. And then in New Jersey, I-276 used to connect to the New Jersey Turnpike before it was signed as I-95 and the intersection between 95 and the Pennsylvania Turnpike was completed. So that's why we have 2 separate 276s on there, even though it was just one road. And now 95 takes it over from Bristol and goes into New Jersey itself, completing the gap, the freeway gap that was there for years. I-77, you have both of them are actually 277. The states are North Carolina and Ohio. 277 is in Charlotte. 277 in Ohio is in Akron. 78. This is going to be an interesting one. Pennsylvania, 178, 378. New Jersey, New York, you have 278. New York, you have 478, 678, and 878. And I made a mistake on here. New York, 478 and 878 are actually unsigned, so it should be underlined, not italicized. And in Pennsylvania, you have 178 and 378, which were planned in Pennsylvania and got canceled. Note here is I-78 does not intersect with any of its three interstate children. I-79, you have 179, 279, 479, 579, all in Pennsylvania. 179, 479 were canceled. So you only have 279, 579 in the Pittsburgh area. Interstate 80, we have 180, 280, 380, 480, 580, 680, 780, 880, 980. And we also have I-238, which I'm going to explain in just a little bit. Nevada, we have 580. Wyoming, we have 180. Nebraska, we have 180 and 580. Nebraska and Iowa, you have 280, 480, 680. Iowa, you have 380 and 880. In Iowa and Illinois, you have 280. Illinois, you have 180. Ohio, you have 280, 380, 480, 680. Pennsylvania, you have 180, 280, 380, 480, 680. New Jersey, 280. All right. California, 180, 480, 780. They're either former or canceled interstates. Now, I believe Nebraska 580 is a canceled interstate. I just forgot again to color code that. Nebraska, Iowa, I-280 is a different part of an interstate now. Iowa, I-80, same deal. Forgot to get the right color on there. It's either a former or canceled one. And then you have Pennsylvania, you have 280, 480, 680. These were actually part of I-80 when it was split, when I-76 used to be known as I-80 South, I-80S. So that's where you get the 280, 480, 680, which are now 276, 476, and 676. Note on here, and why is there an I-238 on here? I-38 does not exist, and I-238 is considered a three-digit interstate of I-80. And it's actually 238 came from a state route number from California. That's why you have it on there. I-180 in Wyoming is not up to interstate standards, but yet it's still signed as Interstate 180. I-81, you have Tennessee, you have 181. Virginia, you have 381 and 581. New York, 481, 781. 181 in Tennessee is canceled and is now part of I-26. And then I-781 in New York is the newest one on this list, and it goes to Fort Drum base in northern New York, just before you cross the bridge to go into Canada. I-82, you only have one, and that's in Washington State with Interstate 182. I-83, same deal, you only have one, which is Pennsylvania, and I-283 in the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania area. I-84, this is one of two that we have a division of because the two 84s do not connect. In the western 84, you only have one three-digit interstate, which is 184 in Idaho. Actually, that's the only three-digit interstate in the state of Idaho. And then on the eastern one, you have New York, Connecticut, which is I-684. In Connecticut, you have I-284, 384, 484. Now, here's the interesting thing. 284, 484 were supposed to go in the Hartford area, and both of them got canceled. Now, the note on here is 684 has no exits in Connecticut, and the Connecticut section of 684 is maintained by the New York Department of Transportation. And it's only like a mile and a half into Connecticut where I-684 does go into. Which is weird, I know. That's the life of an interstate. And in early plannings, that was going to be part of I-87 as well in New York. Interstate 85. Alabama, you have I-685. Georgia, you have 185, 285, 485, 985. South Carolina, you have 185, 385, 585. North Carolina, you have 285, 485, 785, 885. Virginia, 785. 485 in Georgia was canceled. And the note on here is I-785 is proposed to be extended to Virginia. So the 785 in North Carolina, 785 in Virginia, they are the same route. I just didn't put them together for this case because the 785 in North Carolina, part of it is done, and the part that extends to Virginia is not done. Interstate 87, this is the other one that has the two routes to 287s will not plan to meet. And North Carolina, you actually have I-587. And this section, there's a section that opened just this year that extends from I-95, and I believe it goes to Greenville, North Carolina. And it is planning to be extended to meet I-87 in Raleigh. It's supposed to be I-87, not I-587 on the slide here. I know I made a mistake again. But hey, I'm letting you guys know ahead of time. So, and in New York, you have 187, 487, 587, 687, 787. New York, New Jersey, you have 287. 187, 487, 687 were all planned and all canceled. And they were also former. So, and the note I have here is I-87 does not go into New Jersey, and I-87 stays in New York, while 287 goes into New York and New Jersey. And it's the only time where a child interstate goes into more states than a parent does. In this case, New York's case, that's I-87 with I-287. I-89, you have 189 and 289. 289 was planned, but there's part of it that was built, but the rest of it was not built. And 289 actually does exist, but as Vermont Route 289 in the Burlington area. I-90. South Dakota, you have 190. Illinois, you have 190, 290, 490. Ohio, 490. New York, 190, 290, 390, 490, 590, 690, 790, 890, 990. Massachusetts 190 and 290. And on here, Illinois, they're planning on having a 490. And the notes I have here is I-90, I-190 in South Dakota is the only three-digit route west of the Mississippi River that is a child of I-90 west of the Mississippi River. New York uses the complete set of three-digit interstates. Wonder if they'll ever have an I-1090 if they ever decide to reroute I-90 down along 87 south and have it go get off at exit 21A, could be renumbered, and go on the Berkshire extension part instead of having it go for Albany. Wonder if that would be I-1090 or could be I-687 actually. So, and then I-990 is the highest three-digit interstate in the system. I-190 in New York is the only three-digit interstate to reach the Canadian border. Interstate 91. Connecticut, you have 291, 491, 691. Massachusetts, you have 291 and 391. Connecticut, I-491 was supposed to go into the Hartford area. It was supposed to go along Route 3 in that part of the area, but it was canceled along with the 284 and 284 and 484. I-93, New Hampshire, 293 and 393. 293 serves Manchester, 393 serves Concord. Interstate 94. We have North Dakota, which is 194. Minnesota, which is 394. 494, 694. Wisconsin, you have 794 and 894. Illinois, you have 294. And Michigan, you have 194. Now, North Dakota, 194 is unsigned through Bismarck. And I believe that's the only three-digit interstate in the state of North Dakota. Now, Interstate 95 I did in 2 slides because there's so many of them. Florida, where its southern state, is 195, 295, 395, 595, 795. North Carolina, 295, 495, 795. Virginia, 195, 295, 595, 895. Virginia and DC, you have I-395. Virginia, DC, and Maryland, you have 495. Maryland and DC, you have 295. DC, you have 195, 695. Maryland, you have 195, 395, 595, 695, 795, 895. Delaware, you have 495. Now, here's the thing. 795 in Florida is being planned. North Carolina, 495 is now I-87. Virginia, they were supposed to have 595 in the Arlington area, and 895 was canceled, and it's now a toll road. The government did not want to support toll roads as interstates. DC, 195 is a planned route in the future, and in Maryland, 595 is unsigned. And we go into the next I-95 slide now. We have Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania with 295. That's the only other one that goes through 3 states, and it got extended into Pennsylvania in 2018. Pennsylvania, you have 495, 695. New Jersey, you have 195, 495, 695, 895. New York, 295, 495, 695, 895. Connecticut, Massachusetts, you have 395. Rhode Island, Massachusetts, you have 195, 295, 895. Massachusetts, 495, 695. Maine, 195, 295, 395, and 495. Now, Pennsylvania, 495 is now 476, and 695 was canceled. New Jersey, 495 is actually a route. It's actually now New Jersey 495 because it does not connect the I-495, which is New York. And then 695, 895 were planned but canceled. New York, 895 is a former interstate in New York City. Rhode Island, Massachusetts, 895 was supposed to cover the eastern and southern beltway of Providence, Rhode Island. Massachusetts, 695 was supposed to go in the Boston area. And in Maine, I did that again. I made a mistake on here. It's supposed to be underlined. And that's 495, which is unsigned. Alright, I-96, Michigan, 196, 296, 496, 696. 296 is unsigned through the state of Michigan. Then we have I-97, and it was supposed to have 197 and 297, but unfortunately, both of those were canceled, and I believe 297 is Maryland State Route 3. In Hawaii, we do have one, but only one, and that's IH-201. So, I hope you enjoy this trip down the interstate highways and learning more about them. If you have any questions, just let me know. Comment on the comments. Contact me on Facebook or whatever. And if you enjoyed this, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and my podcast channel, because we're doing more of these educational videos, and who knows, maybe I'll plan one for the US route highways, or the US highways, and maybe the 3-digit US highway. So please consider subscribing so that we can have more people watching and more people enjoying this wonderful country of ours and what makes it different from everyone else and what is great about this highway system and the roads that are out there. So stay safe, drive safe, and we'll catch you next time.